If it has a score, we cover it more. From football to lacrosse, hockey to baseball, we've got what you want. Welcome to the Rod Pedersen Show.
Hello, it is Nick Lewis, and we are live from Regina, Saskatchewan. I'm here on the Rod Pedersen Show. It's the takeover. We have the Rollout for Flooring Superstore. It's going to be a great 2 hours today. I have some great guests in studio with me, Kelly Rimple, and the man, Charleston Hughes, sack master. So, yeah, look, I wanted to do this today. I had the opportunity. I love podcasting. I love talking on the mic, and I love being in front of a camera. So I'm glad I have the opportunity to do that today with you guys, with Charleston and Kelly. We have more guys coming up in the second hour. We have Chris Getzlaff coming in studio. Also, coming in on the videos, we have Damon Allen, John Bowman, Ryan Phillips, and Joaquin Bradley. So it's going to be a fun packed, and yeah, this is my first time up here. It's not going to be perfect, but it is going to be fun, and I hope y'all ready to ride with me. So right here, Charleston, how you doing? You just had elbow surgery a couple days ago. How's that feeling?
It's feeling pretty good right now. I'm sitting here rehabbing right now as we speak, trying to slowly work my way out of the sling. I get my stitches out today, so we're making progress.
Making progress. Hey, we also have the daily poll for Capital Auto Mall and Universal Collision Center. That daily poll this morning, I don't know if you know it. Charleston Hughes, should he have been the defensive coordinator? Yes. Defensive coordinator. Defensive player of the year. My bad, Shives. As far as defensive player of the year, you led the league in sacks 4 years in a row. How you feel about this year? I seen you on Twitter. You were talking about how you should win. If you don't win, you got robbed. How do you feel now?
I still feel robbed in a way, but when it's all said and done, they give it to whoever they deem they need to give it to for that particular year. The way I just view it as it should be based on, for all awards really, it should be based on that year's statistical stat line. So when you weigh that in and say, okay, who was hands down the best player, who had the best stats for that particular season, that's what I feel like it should be weighed on. I was defensive player of the month for 3 months out of 6 months of football. When you weigh that in, that should be heavily weighed as the best defensive player in the league for 3 months. I was defensive player of the month. When you look at it that way, that raises questions. I was sack leader for 4 years in a row, if you want to go outside of what I did that season, but it is what it is. I'm proud of Willie. He deserved it. He did a good job this year. This was his highest statistical stat season as far as sacks go. He had a lot of knockdowns. He is the knockdown king.
he has nice interceptions too.
Yeah, nice interceptions. He's won a lot of games in the past, with that stat line. So, more power to him. He did a great job this year.
Kelly, how you feel about that?
Well, I agree to a point. I think that you can't ignore numbers, right? Numbers don't lie. The numbers are the numbers. They are what they are. But I do think that there are times where, the people making these decisions, they don't necessarily, it's not always about like just specific numbers and on lines. It's the timing of some of the plays too. So, if one player in their minds, and I certainly don't know how that would weigh out in this case, because of course I'm not making those decisions, so I'm not knee deep in that stuff. But I do know that, it's often the timing. So maybe they didn't have as many sacks, but the timing of the sacks were, in their minds, significant. They often came late in fourth quarters on last-minute drives, or, you might have one player that, well, this guy had more touchdowns and catches than this guy, but the player over here, when he made those touchdowns, they were like game winners, or they were more significant in their minds. I think what makes it difficult is that when you have players that are of that caliber that put up these amazing numbers, sometimes you really can't go wrong with whoever you pick. Like, there's no bad choice, and somebody has to make a decision. And, I just remember a few years ago there was Stevie Baggs and John Chick were here as the ends. And I remember that they picked John Chick, and Stevie was just like really upset that he didn't win the team Defensive Player of the Year. But really, either one of them could have won, and you couldn't have picked the wrong choice. But you can't. It's not 50-50.
Yes.
You have to make a decision, and it's unfortunate that Stevie felt like he was somehow, mistreated. But I don't think that the intention was to give it to John because they had a motivation or there was an agenda. I think that they just felt that maybe if you looked at like game by game, series by quarter by quarter, he just made more bigger plays at the key times. So again, with you and Willie, I mean, you couldn't have made a bad choice, really. I mean, and you did deserve to win. What are the chances that two guys have that on the defensive end position have two amazing years in the exact same year like that?
I call this year the year of the D-line. There's so many great D-lines across the CFL. Do you feel like part of the reason could be because you got off to a quick start last year and this past season? You're getting 10 sacks in the first 10 games, and then you kind of slow off at the end of the season. You think that plays a part in the voters' minds, or you feel like?
No, I think more of what it is just a factor of he always do that. Yeah, he do that all the time. He's led the league in sacks for 4 years in a row. I mean, we expect him to be up there, to be one of the best defensive ends in the league. So it's nothing different. So like when you view somebody that way, and I'm probably viewed that way, where he's going to lead the league in sacks again. Okay, well, who's the next best guy?
So it's like Calgary's home attendance.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they're going to win the home game, so there's no reason to really go unless there's somebody that we're going to play against in there. So I can see that, and I can definitely see your mindset on it. And Kelly, you bring up a good point with Chick and Bag. Man, those two guys were bookends, and they were going at it every week. And sometimes I remember talking to Bag, and he felt like, well, I'm pushing the quarterback to Chick sometimes, and he's getting the sack, but I'm getting the pressure and the hurry that pushes him over there. How was it last year playing with Willie? And then this year, seeing him go to Winnipeg and do what he did this year?
I mean, he improved, tremendously, especially from his years before playing with me. I do my best to make the guy across from me as best as I can. I critique everybody on the defensive line. I mean, it's gotten far this year that, I was doing film corrections and film studying and making sure everybody in the right place at the right time. I do my best to make sure the defensive line is always in the right place. We always know how each other's going to play. Playing with Willie was awesome. I feel like every defensive end opposite of me always have their best season of their career playing opposite of me. It's kind of for a reason, because I do help other guys. I do my best to groom other players. And he hit double digits for the first time, playing across from me. So it was great. And I learned some stuff from him too. I mean, that jump swim he got is vicious.
He's long.
Yeah.
He can cover ground. I seen him this year. We went to block him on the edge, and he kind of jumped around the tackle, and he took 2 steps and closed in on the running back before the running back got to the line of scrimmage. And I've only seen like a couple people be able to do that. Jaguar Davis is another guy that can do that, and they have that hop step and take off, and they're really good at that. Jack Fulton says, problem with being the best in the game year after year at your position like Charleston, it's so much the norm that when someone else has a good year, it stands out. And I can agree with that. It's a lot of things that people don't talk about. The media doesn't look at as scheme. When we talk about scheme, and you look at a guy like Sean Lemon, who's in Toronto playing for Corey Chamberlain, and he doesn't have a lot of pressures, doesn't have a lot of sacks, and 2 straight years goes to BC, and he's in the top 5 of pressures and top 5 in sacks. Can you talk a little bit about scheme and what you see that allows Willie to do that in Winnipeg that didn't allow him to really do it here in SAS?
Really, when it comes down to scheme for Willie, you got to let him just be him. Let him do his thing. Let him kind of navigate through the offensive line the best way he can. So you got to kind of draw up stuff and kind of circle everything around him so that he can get in passing lanes and knock balls down, and he can pass rush if he wants to. That's why they kind of move him inside and outside, and they move him kind of around all over the place. Same way they do Ja'Gair Davis, same way they do Sean Lemon. You know, Sean Lemon's the kind of guy that you need on the edge, and you have to give him two-way goes all the time. You got to get him inside-outside on every single pass rush. Knowing that he's going to win, but he has to have somebody to cover him up all the time. So you have to have your nose guard always looking for him to cover him up when he has this two-way go. For me, I'm the same way. As long as you can give me a two-way go most of the time, or single me up where I'm not double-teamed or I'm not chip blocked, then most of the time I'm going to win probably 85% of my pass rushes. When it comes down to scheme, I think scheme is probably the most important thing. Because even if you look at Micah Johnson, a lot of people think Micah Johnson had an off year this year. Well, he didn't have an off year. It was just the simple fact that, you know, he didn't close out on a lot of the plays that he should have closed out on. So we kind of took away a lot of his two-way goes just based on everybody slides the protection to him. So they take away his two-way go right off the bat as soon as the center turns his way. So now he's stuck going one way, one-dimensional as a three technique. And it's not good when you really pass rushing like that. You got to be able to have two-way goes. Not
only that, but just to jump in, and that's sometimes where stats don't always tell the whole story. Because I can, to go back to your days here, I remember watching Nate Davis and Scott Schultz, right? Well, Scott Schultz would be the first one to tell you that one of the reasons that he was, effective is that because Nate Davis was almost double-teamed every single time.
You had to.
He's an absolute beast. If you single, there's no guard in the league that was going to be able to handle him on his own. So if you're the other inside lineman, you're going to face single, protection almost every single play. So, of course, Scott Schultz is going to end up with more sacks than Nate Davis. But the fact that Nate was able to basically take a double team every time and still have a reasonable amount of sacks, and, inside guys, it's more about gaps, right? So, his gap from here to here is he doing his job almost every single play, but at the end of the year, it doesn't show up with numbers all over the board, but he was the most effective interior defensive lineman in the whole league with not huge numbers.
Yeah.
So the numbers don't always tell the story. So maybe that was part of the Micah Johnson thing as well, is he's getting a lot of attention, which really theoretically should free up somebody else to maybe clean some of that stuff up.
Exactly.
Just want to say hi to Sandra Larson from Saskatoon. Thank you for checking in, looking up, and seeing what we're doing here on the Rod Pedersen Show. It's Nick Lewis and the Takeover. When we talk about that, the interior D-line, every middle linebacker, the linebackers know how important the D-line is, and the two nose tackles, and they do a lot of the dirty work. Right, they're trying to keep linemen off the linebacker so they can make plays. And as a D lineman, as a rush guy, you're helping your DBs. So when you have a DB with a lot of picks, or you have a DB with or a good secondary, it usually means you have a good pass rush. Would you agree? And how do you view that? When guys change teams, and some guy might not be as well, you don't think he's very good, but then he comes to your team and he starts doing really well. Can you talk about some of those factors that go into that?
Well, I think they complement each other. So it goes in the run game. The defensive line complements the linebackers to make plays. In the pass game, the defensive line complements the secondary. The secondary complements the defensive line. So when you're in like zone coverages, you expect all the DBs to be in the right area, and the right hook to curl and the right curl to flat, everybody in the deep zones to kind of make the quarterback hold the ball. Because if the quarterback's holding the ball, that means the pass rush got to get there. So when you got the pass rush on and you're in man coverage, DBs don't want to be in man coverage all day. So they're like, where's the pass rush? And they're screaming at the D-line, where's the rush at? Why the quarterback holding the ball so long? Because when they're in man coverage, they're covering for days. And if your man running a vertical route, you got to run vertical with him 60 yards. However far he run, you got to go with him. And when it comes to the defensive line, man, you got to pass rush no matter what. You got to get to the quarterback. If you're getting the ball thrown all over you in man coverage, it's 100% because the pass rush isn't getting there. But on the opposite end of that, if you're in zone coverage, you expect the ball not to come out fast. when the ball's coming out fast, when you're in the zone coverage, then you're going like somebody not getting to their drops. Something's going on. We can't pass rush. I can't even get into my first move without the ball coming out. So hand in hand, they do complement each other.
Well, and you know, even just coaching in Regina minor football, there's certain things that are kind of universal, no matter what level of football you're coaching. Whether you're coaching 12-year-olds or whether you're coaching pros, as far as the defensive line, it doesn't really change. The pressure needs to come from the edge, but if your two guys in the middle are getting bullied and pushed back, that just means that the quarterback steps up in the pocket and there's seams all over the place for not only for him to be able to look downfield and see what's going on, but he could take off with the ball and all kinds of things. So it's an underrated, I guess, maybe an underappreciated part of the game is you got four guys, different shapes and sizes, different speeds, different everything, but it all has to sort of come together. You need the edge to like kind of bring everything in tight. But if those two guys in the middle are getting pushed around all over the place, you have no chance. It's like you need to create. I mean, I'm a Minnesota Viking fan. Believe me, I watch this every week, and it's a little bit like a box of chocolates with that team because one week they'll have an unbelievable pass rush, and then the next week the FBI can't find any pressure. But I mean, but that's another story for another day. But you know, But nobody ever talks about that. Have you noticed that as a football fan? We always want to talk about the touchdowns and the
end result. You talk about the end result.
The fun stuff. Nobody ever goes to a football game, pays their $90, and then sits back and watches the battle between the center and the nose guard. Like they're watching the ball being slung around the field.
Yeah, I know 100%. I do. The ball be downfield. I'll be watching NFL games, and I'm all in the front seven. I'm all in the D line. Yeah, I'm watching all of
and probably
stuff.
like a coach too, going, I wonder why they twisted on that play. Like what? There was no reason to do that. Like why are they stunting? So we do tend to watch it different than fans. Even I noticed even since I started coaching, I watch games totally different now.
Totally different.
But I think your average fan that goes to the game probably has no appreciation for how important those little details are. And if you don't do those little things right, forget it.
Yeah.
They're gonna run the ball, those draw plays, those little quick shots.
I always say it takes one person to save a defensive play and one person to mess up an offensive play.
To screw it completely up.
So it's totally different on that. But we're sponsored by Prairie Mobile text line at 306-840-8777. Buy now, pay later at Prairie Mobile. All smartphones at $0 every day using SaskTel plus pricing.
Prairie Mobile.
We are already at our first break. Man, this thing is flying by. Thank you, guys. We'll be back with Charleston and Kelly, and we have John Bowman joining the chat when we come back.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.